4 buses have been torched and a number of cars stoned in Cape Town since taxi operators decided to suspend services yesterday. Commuters were again left stranded as there was no public transport available. Sporadic acts of violence were reported across the city as police and taxi drivers squared off. It comes after the city impounded a number of taxis it deemed unroadworthy and have committed dangerous traffic offences. JP Smith, Cape Town Safety and Security MMC, joins us now for more. Thank you so much, MMC, for your time this evening. We know you've had an incredibly busy couple of days trying to deal with this situation. And I want to start off with the impounding of those taxis, which the operators say is happening unfairly and over minor infringements. What's your response to that?
I think we've cleared this up quite a few times and pointed out that we issue both fines and impound. So like all municipalities, we issue fines to all motorists who engage in road traffic accidents. And because the national legislation, that's not a city bylaw as is mistakenly said at times, it's the National Land Transportation Act, specifically permits for impoundment for public transport vehicles. It doesn't do that for private vehicles. The city bylaw actually extends that to private vehicles as well. But the National Land Transportation Act then permits for the impoundment of vehicles for not having operating licenses, being off route, or any other offence. And where the offences are serious enough, driving in oncoming traffic, driving over traffic lights, driving through stop streets, driving on sidewalks, and the like, drunk driving, there we will impound the vehicle because the fines are ineffective in achieving behavior change. And as road traffic regulatory authorities, our job is to make sure that our roads are made safer. Losing 12,500 people a year who are killed on our roads is by no means acceptable. And the commuters in these public transport vehicles, in these taxis, their lives are precious to us. We want to make sure they're getting home safely. And the kind of horror accident we had in Mitchell's Plain a couple of months ago by a public transport vehicle driven recklessly is precisely a case in point. So it is appropriate that we take the most effective action for bringing the drivers to order. And in fact, when we sit down in discussion with the taxi associations, as we've done over many meetings, they don't in the meetings dispute that that is appropriate. And I would suggest that, in fact, more authorities in South Africa should be doing this. Some are already, we're not the only one, but more authorities should be doing this because it should be all of our collective goal to make people safe. And the minibus taxi industry, like all public transport operators, need to up their game and make sure that we operate more safely.
So in response to the violence over the past 2 days, you're threatening to impound 25 vehicles for every truck, bus, or vehicle or facility that's burnt or vandalized. Has there been a positive reaction to that, or do you think that's pouring petrol on the fire?
Well, we made the general principle to them that they must understand that when you call for a strike and you claim to be in control of operators and drivers, and the moment you call for the strike, 3 buses are torched, and the next day another 3 buses, that's 7.2 million rands worth of damages to Golden Arrow alone. My city buses are torched, an ambulance, a Coca-Cola truck is attacked, school is attacked, private vehicles are set alight, about 6 or 7. All of those damages are for your account. You have created mayhem purposely. A group of taxi drivers were sent out yesterday afternoon when only 2 hours notice was given to commuters to the strike. And those drivers purposely blocked off roads, blocked off the N2 exiting. The road that the majority of the poorest commuters would be on. That is purposefully malicious. That is extremely hateful towards people who need to get home in time to get to their families. It is deeply inconsiderate and cause traffic mayhem and a whole range of attendant problems. That's not conduct by people who care about the commuters. And so we have a range of safety measures in place today to escort buses. And we have, where that is impossible because of the risk, we have staging areas where people can come to the buses, but that's not ideal because people still have to walk back home much longer distances than they should need to. And none of that would be needed if it were not for the violence, intimidation, and destruction that some people in the sector are engaged in. And whereas it is your right to withhold services, it is never your right to engage in public violence and destroy property and attack others and attack commuters in a bus. That's abhorrent.
Whenever we talk to taxi associations, amidst such violence, the standard response seems to be, well, it's not our members, it's criminal elements. You can't, prove that it's taxi drivers doing it. It's opportunistic people using the situation for their own ends. In this instance, can we verifiably connect taxi drivers to the violence that's currently ongoing? And how do we then use that to say, well, hang on, this is not how you conduct a strike. Let's move forward and do it in a constructive way.
So the short answer to that is if you call for a strike, and the moment you call for the strike, the damage and in some cases looting and attacks start the second you call for it. And we can see in some cases the public transport vehicles involved now, 13 people arrested who have been detained. There were more arrested than that, 27 I think, of which 14 were released, but 13 will proceed. And we are gathering evidence. A firearm has been taken in Nyanga, and that will be potentially forensically linked as well. So we'll see what comes out of this, but it would be grievously naive to pretend that one didn't understand how this dynamic was working. And if you claim to be the leader of an organization and of a fraternity and you have no control of your members, then is your fraternity safe to talk to? And are you then really its leader if you have no control over the chaos that you generate? Are you then just irresponsible calling for such a strike, knowing what the consequences would be?
Talk to us about the engagements with Police Minister Bheki Cele. He's saying that the the problem is between the City of Cape Town and the taxi associations, and he's also said that you need serious psychological help after you said that he had encouraged the taxi industry to go on strike. Now, this seems to be playing off in a situation where commuters are left stranded, cars are being stoned, buses are being torched, violence is threatening the lives of people, and there's this war of words that's going on that doesn't seem to be adding to a solution.
Well, I'm afraid there's not a war of words from my side. I understand that kind of unprofessional conduct by the National Minister. It's sad to see a national minister conduct himself like that when you are the Minister of Police and it is your job to achieve safety and protect your own staff, your own police officers who are in the firing line during these strikes. And you go to a meeting and you pour fuel on the fire and you egg it on. It's deeply irresponsible, but we've come to expect little more of him than that. The simple reality is that nobody encouraged the taxis to strike. We had a meeting scheduled with them on Monday, and they abstained. They refused to come to the meeting or just didn't show. That meeting was cancelled by them on very short notice. The rest of us remain committed to the taxi task team. Discussions resumed today, which discussions could have been had on Monday, and the violence, the interceding violence could have been easily avoided. But there is a lack of effective and rational and reasonable leadership within the industry. And I put it to you that the stated public motives for the strike are not the real motives, that these strikes are used as an excuse for economic sabotage of competitors and settling other scores, and that's deeply disappointing. Today, I was around the city at many sites, and we saw children under the age of 10 being used to instigate stone throwing and attacks incited by one or two adults. I captured it on video. It's very disappointing to see because I can only imagine the value set those particular young persons will grow up with.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Also, we'll investigate whether this has had any impact on the amount of international tourists who are visiting Cape Town at the moment. We know the Netball World Cup is ongoing there. Sad, as you say, that this is having such an impact on the community and on such a prestigious event. Thank you very much. That was JP Smith, Cape Town Safety and Security MMC. We'll continue to explore that issue this evening.